Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics. First on CBS News Colorado, I'm political specialist Shaun Boyd. This week, we are kicking off a series of conversations with candidates for Denver mayor, starting with Chris Hansen. A state senator, he has represented Denver in the legislature for 6 years, serving on the powerful Joint Budget Committee. Chris has a degree in engineering and more than 20 years' experience working with renewable energy and electricity companies, along with governments at every level. He has also worked in finance and corporate strategy for a global Fortune 500 company, and Chris is married with 2 teenage sons in Denver public schools. This week, he became the first candidate to put up a TV ad.
How did it come to this? This is not the Denver I want for our kids. And City Hall's response isn't working. It's time for a new direction. As an engineer, I've solved complex problems in the private and public sectors. As mayor, I'll audit homeless programs and enforce the camping ban across the city. And I'll invest in highly trained, accountable police. I'm Chris Hansen. I have plans to solve these problems, not hide from them.
All right, Chris, welcome to Left, Right, Center.
Thanks, Shaun.
So let's talk about this ad. You were calling for an audit of homeless programs in the city. So what would that encompass, and how long would it take?
Yeah, you know, I would like to work closely with the city auditor on this. I know some work has already been done in this direction, and it really builds off of the work that I've done at the Joint Budget Committee at the state level, where I did a bipartisan bill to create evidence-based budgeting at the state. It means every time we look at new spending or current spending, or any expansion or change, we're really trying to understand what's working and what's not before we make that decision. And Denver right now is spending a huge amount of money on services, about $250 million this year. And we're seeing what is essentially a negative result, the problem getting worse, not getting better. And so I think we badly need to start with a clear audit, look at where we're seeing effectiveness, double down there, but quickly pull back from places that we're not seeing good results.
So critics of Housing First, which is the model that Denver uses, you know, it's an unconditional housing, essentially. They call that socialized housing. Do you agree with that? And do you think there should be some requirements for treatment?
Well, look, I think as you scan the country for places that are making progress, San Antonio comes to mind. I had a chance to talk in depth with some of their community leaders about how they've made progress, cutting numbers in half over the last 18 to 24 months. And what came out very clearly is that they are looking at housing with wraparound services, and that housing alone, you just don't see progress. It just sort of allows the problem to continue, and not giving the people the services they need means they kind of get stuck. And I think we made some big investments at the state level and the state budget last year, investing in like the Ridgeview facility east of town, 300 new treatment beds that are stable housing with wraparound services, great psychiatric help, mental health help, addiction support, right? Addressing the root causes and helping people get back on their feet.
So should there be, you know, you talk about $250 million that Denver's spending, should there be some type of regional, like an SCFD type tax? Homelessness is now a regional issue.
Yeah, it's absolutely regional, and I've had a chance to meet with several of the mayors around the metro area, including Mayor Kaufman and Mayor Paul. And we absolutely have to have a regional approach because it doesn't just stay in one city. Now, Denver is the epicenter. Let's be clear about that. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are coming to Denver because of various factors. And so, you know, and that was one of the big arguments we made at the state legislature last year, is that we need state help because this is a regional problem.
Right.
It's not just Denver, and Denver can't be by itself. And so now we have this great opportunity with state and some federal funds to really make some big progress. And that's why I feel so urgent about it. This is a moment to really focus in on what's working, double down there, and now we've got a chance to make real progress.
Since enacting the inclusionary zoning policy in Denver, where the new housing has a certain number of affordable units, permit applications for multifamily dwellings are actually down. Is the policy working?
Well, I think there's a really open question on that because we saw a rush of applications to try to beat the deadline.
Yeah.
Thousands, I believe, came in before the deadline of the new policy. So I think it's a very fair question. We're going to have to take a close look at that in my administration because the goal is to catch up on a massive supply shortage.
Right.
The estimates I've seen are between 50 and 60,000 units short. That causes a supply shortage, and it's like we're taxing ourselves, right? Because all the rents go up, and when we have this kind of shortage, all the prices go up, and it makes life harder for everybody when we've fallen this far behind. So I have got a very detailed plan on this issue. I think we need to take advantage of higher density on our corridors, like East Colfax, for example, West Colfax, Federal, are all places where I think we can get some new density, start to catch up on the housing shortage, and make sure it's married up nicely with good transit. If we can do that, we've got a great recipe for success.
We're going to talk about climate in just a bit. A study out this week by Common Sense Institute found Denver one of the top cities in the country for crime. It's ranked 3rd in auto theft, 6th in property crime, 10th in rape. Why is Denver so worse than other cities of the same size?
Yeah, and Shaun, this is the #1 issue on voters' minds right now, is who can address public safety and really help Denver get back into a better spot, because Denver doesn't work. Downtown doesn't work. We're not going to function as a city if we don't rebuild our public safety department. And to make sure your viewers know the situation here in this early part of 2023, we are way short on police officers. We are even shorter on the sheriff's office. And I'm very proud to be the one candidate in this race that has an endorsement from rank and file law enforcement officers, and the sheriffs are supporting me in this race through the Teamsters. That is a really important marker, I think, for voters to know, because I have committed to rebuilding our public safety department. We need a mayor who's going to be actively recruiting, actively supporting, reinvesting in great training for our police department, for our sheriff's department, because if we don't rebuild and rejuvenate it, we're never going to solve the crime issues that we're seeing in the city right now. So to me, that is the #1 priority. And as the next mayor, I will be laser focused on rebuilding public safety.
In addition to crime, we've got the threat of climate change. I don't need to tell you that. Yeah. Name 3 changes that you would make to get Denver to that 65% renewable goal by 2030, and how would you fund them?
Yeah, this is such an important topic. I mean, you walk outside and you look toward the mountains right now, you still see the brown cloud, right? We still have terrific air quality issues we have to deal with. We need to rapidly decrease carbon emissions to help do our part to tackle climate change. Here's the great news. Denver is an amazing spot to capture this opportunity with the right leadership in City Hall. The federal legislation that's just been passed, the state programs that I have helped pass at the Capitol set us up for success, but the city's got to be able to deliver on all of the areas to improve emissions. That means electrification of our buildings. It means electrification of transportation. It means getting density in transit connected, like I mentioned before, to help lower emissions. And there's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity here and tens of thousands of great green jobs that we can create if we get this done right. But the city has to act. We got to get permits done on time. We've got to move these projects to take advantage of what is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
The city's contract with Excel, as you know, is expiring. What should the new contract look like? Yeah, again, the next mayor is going to be responsible for renegotiating the franchise agreement with Excel. That is a moment where we can get great consumer protections into that agreement and make sure we accelerate the electrification work that we need to do. Think of, the steam system downtown, an antiquated technology ripe for changeover to using ground source heat pumps, for example. Drastically lower emissions, lower people's costs. I'm sure everybody's been looking at their utility bills the last couple months. Natural gas prices have spiked. Consumers are paying more. The quicker we electrify, the quicker we can protect customers. And I think that negotiation with Excel, something I've done many times at the state capitol, I'm the best qualified to do that on behalf of Denver residents. President Biden's infrastructure bill, he wants that federal funding, any project that receives federal funding, to have all American materials. That could certainly drive up the cost of a lot of the projects. We've got the East Colfax BRT, DIA 7th runway, and on and on. Do you support this policy? Yeah, I think the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, as it was titled, there's a number of provisions in there that really try to boost economic growth in the U.S. as we do this work. And I absolutely support that. I mean, high labor standards, making sure we're creating great jobs with sustainable benefits and wages, making sure we try to max out the amount of supplies and materials we're buying from the U.S. There are some exceptions. There are ways that you can get exemptions if materials aren't available. But I share your concern. We obviously don't want to drive up costs. But I love the focus on really reinvigorating U.S. manufacturing and having high labor standards as we do this work. We have time for one last question. The Denver Business Journal reported that between 2019 and 2022, Denver had a net loss of 6,500 businesses, 1,000 of them from the downtown business district. 1 in 4 homeowners are looking to move out of the city. Crime, cost of living, schools, they're among the reasons. What do you do immediately to stop the bleeding and then attract new businesses?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, my theme of this race is let's build a city that works. And the stats you just shared show that in many ways we're not working, we're not functioning if businesses are leaving. Look, downtown is in a crisis moment. We have to reinvent ourselves and reinvigorate downtown, or the whole city is not going to function. That is a huge focus of my next administration. And I really see some great opportunity for more people living in and near downtown. Conversion of some of the office buildings to residences, the redevelopment at Elitch's, at Ball Arena, tens of thousands of new opportunities to get people living in downtown, because we're not going to go back to 2019. It's not going to be the same office culture, right? People have more flexible work arrangement. And so we need to change the way we think about downtown. And I think one of the linchpins of that is create attractive, safe spaces with great public safety and have people living in and near downtown.
All right. Well, it was great talking with you. Thank you for coming on Left, Right, Center. And Chris is the first of 6 Denver mayoral candidate interviews we'll be doing on Left, Right, Center. Due to the large pool of candidates, we are focusing our coverage on the top 6 fundraisers, which you see on your screen there. Watch for my conversations with the others in the coming weeks. When we come back, we will hear from our analysts, Republican Dick Wadhams and Democrat Mike Dino. Welcome back to Left, Right, Center. I'm political specialist Shaun Boyd with our analysts, Democrat Mike Dino, Republican Dick Wadhams. So you both heard my interview with Chris Hansen. Thoughts? Dick?
I think he's very polished, and he's also very informed. But it's an advantage to come out of the legislature to run for mayor or any office, Shaun, because you're exposed to the issues every day, and you develop a coherent message. And I think that Chris really demonstrated that today.
Anything set him apart, Mike?
Well, he certainly benefits from having almost 7 years now in the legislature from the Southeast area. And you can't be in the legislature that long and not know what your constituents want. Southeast is a very fertile territory for voters. You know, certainly in races past, they have been key to victory because you have a solid group of voters that show up, particularly in the general election. And the general election is different this year. It's a month earlier.
Right.
And I'm not sure how people are going to react to that.
That's huge, though, that if he has a contingent turnout, because, I mean, you're talking the one that goes on to the
Yeah, he can carry.
You get 15% of the vote, and you're going on to the runoff.
Yeah, he has a base that knows him.
Yeah. So he is the only candidate right now with a TV ad. I want your thoughts on the ad, his opponent's reaction to it, and the impact, really, that it could have on this race.
Well, it seems to me that he's based the ad on his polling or in his research, and crime's a big issue. That all the candidates are talking about the 3 issues: crime, homelessness, and affordability. I think the ad was run a little bit too soon. It's really, yes, ballots don't drop for another 3 weeks. And he's trying to get out there. I understand his strategy. Wellington Webb did that way back when in 1991. It wasn't a good use of his money. And I'm not sure this is a good use of Chris's money.
John Hickenlooper, his worked, though.
But he didn't go that far out. I mean, you know, it's. I think you got to time it around when voters are going to be voting.
Dick?
Well, it's a calculation on his part. I'm not as probably negative about it as Mike is, because in a 17-person field, you've got to stand out.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I think it was a cheap shot against Chris last night, the attack that somehow the ad is racist or something. And I think there are a couple of candidates, more than 2, in this field, that were just begging, wanting to play the race card at some point. Well, they found their opportunity last night, and I think that's sad. And I just don't think it's legitimate to attack Chris like that.
Since you bring up that debate that was hosted by another media outlet, they decided to block the Republican candidate, as you know, Andy Roger, because he isn't taking any money from Denver's Fair Elections Fund. Is that fair?
No, it's not. In fact, Rougeau has proven that he's a legitimate candidate. He's got a solid platform, one not everybody agrees with, and the fact that he can fund his own campaign makes him legitimate. And I think to legitimize a candidate because they're part of the Fair Election Fund, that's a distortion of what that fund is all about, in my opinion.
You agree, Mike?
No. I mean, the Fair Election Fund is new. I'll be clear right from the get-go. I don't agree. You know, they're working with it. I saw Paul Lopez last night, the clerk and recorder, who's largely charged in enforcing. I mean, we had a horrible tragedy this past week with one of the candidates from Chris Hansen, Councilman 10. He uses a wheelchair. It wasn't accessible at the forum. I mean, it's a terrible debacle. Just a terrible debacle. And so they're trying to work out the protocol of it. Before you had a chance to visit with Chris, we were talking about the forums from here on out. He says last night's forum will be the last one where they have that many. Everybody's cutting off the number and making it more manageable. And so it's unfair if you're left out. For those who are producing it, it's just criteria.
Yeah, Shaun, I would say it's admirable for somebody not to take taxpayer money to run their campaign. I look at it from a totally different standpoint. I hate public financing, and I think that Rougeau should be elevated, not attacked for doing that. That's how I feel about it. So.
Well, let's talk. What is the key to a candidate getting to the runoff in such a crowded field?
To me, it's likability. I mean, certainly the issues are very serious, but they are the same for all the candidates. And I think people got to look at them and say, they're competent enough, but do I like them? And when they get to the runoff, they'll really size them up for their capability, their experience. But right now, they got to feel like, this is a person I can hang out with.
Dick, you agree? Likability?
I totally agree with Mike on this.
There we go. Okay.
And Mike and I,
the show.
Mike and I have been on enough campaigns. We know in Colorado, likability is huge.
Right.
And if they don't like you, they're not going to listen to you. So I think Mike's right.
We both are very likable. You guys should be running. So. Thanks for watching us on Left, Right, Center. We'll see you next time.